Well, welcome to another episode of Manifesting Magically with Trevor and Ann. I'm Trevor, and with me is my good friend Ann. And before we start, we'd just like to thank everybody who's subscribed to the channel. Thank you for liking, watching, commenting on the videos. Your comments, especially if they're more than 7 words, and hitting that thumbs up button really does help the video get to more people. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And on a personal note, I'd just like to thank everybody who sent me well wishes on getting better. I am feeling better. Still not 100%, but we're getting there. So how are you doing, Anne?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. It seems like there's kind of a lot going on in the news, and the energies feel a little bit chaotic at times. What are your thoughts?
Oh, totally. I think that there's a lot of stuff going on. And I think with Thanksgiving coming up, there's a lot of other things that come to mind, right? Are people going to be able to get home for Thanksgiving? Are flights going to be normal by then? Or are they still going to be chaotic? I mean, they're chaotic enough to begin with, usually.
Yeah.
Um, how are Thanksgiving dinners going to be? Um, are we going to be able to afford what we usually do, or do we cut back? All kinds of stuff.
I mean, I definitely think there's fear around grocery prices and um affordability in general. I feel like even people that maybe have a little bit of extra money are scared to spend it because they don't know when they're going to need it.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of affecting everyone up and down the income ladder, I think, with the obvious exceptions of the billionaires. But um, I think I just think there's a lot of unknowns, and that's why it's concerning because we haven't had stable grocery prices in, 2 years or so.
Well, it kind of feels like it hasn't been stable since the pandemic, to be honest,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think I think that's right. I mean, you can occasionally get a good sale, but you have to watch out for it. I've noticed with our grocery store that the digital sell prices really are just the normal prices,
Oh,
um, which wasn't
yeah,
always the case, but it seems to really be the case now. So
yeah.
they'll raise the price and then they'll put a digital coupon to try to get you to buy it. Or, they'll want you to buy, a lot. Like I got a coupon in the mail. It's a pretty good one, I think. It's spend $250, save $25, which is 10%, but $250 is a lot to like plan out as far as food goes.
Oh my gosh, that's my monthly budget for the grocery store.
I mean, we just don't probably spend that either. And well, you've been to our house, so you know that we stocked up on canned goods.
I know you're not afraid to stock up, and you know that I live in the country, and so like going to the grocery store is a whole thing. It's not just a walk down the sidewalk. So I always have enough to just make a, pot of soup or something in the fridge, right? Um, but
Yeah.
but it's one thing to stock up a little bit, and it's another to stock up a couple $100 worth.
Well, yeah, especially if you haven't budgeted for it that month, right? Like that's a lot
Yeah.
of extra cash to have, personally. So yeah, I think, some people have asked about some more money manifesting. I thought maybe we could talk about that today as well. And then I kind of want to talk about this Marjorie Taylor Greene, Epstein, the felon. Everything's, I mean, just crazy.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Yeah, so I do want to get to the crazy, but let's start with some of the more basic stuff, which is how do we manage things on a regular basis? I mean, there's the, buying relatively frugal, but nobody should be subsisting on rice and beans, right? That's just not a good experience. and we don't want to do something like that. So how about if we talk about a little manifestation spell for being able to afford our groceries within our budget, but getting good stuff too, you know?
Right.
Um, I do want to just kind of, I mean, I know this is kind of a side note, but when I think about groceries and budgets, I think about the people that I know that have had um, eating disorders and how sometimes that can factor into budgets and stuff at the same time.
Yes.
And I've had some people that I really love that still have issues, managed, but it's still there. And I know when I was young, I decided I would never budget fully. I have a certain amount of money for every week for groceries, but I wanted to make sure that I never said I can't buy this because of, so I don't go out and buy the fancy pants cheeses every week, but I don't not buy the fancy pants cheeses either. It's like only once a month instead of every week. So I hope that people keep that in mind of like you do want to be frugal, but you also want to enjoy your groceries, enjoy eating. It's a wonderful communal activity, and it should be a healthy thing. And that's what we want is we want it to be a healthy part of our lives.
I think that's a really good point. And when stock up on the pantry, there are things that aren't necessarily healthy, but they're indulgent, so to speak. Like brownie mixes, things like that, just to have them.
Yeah, I know
So
what you
that
mean.
so that you're
Yeah.
so that you're not feeling deprived when you're maybe going a week with a little bit, no meat or more on the I
Making your own granola versus buying the pre-made stuff. Yeah.
right. And I also make sure that we have lots of spices, whether they're cheap or not, on hand, because then you can season up anything, right? And make it taste a little bit better.
Oh, that makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so what you got for us?
Okay. So we want abundance with our groceries, but we also want to have be within our budget. So I bought a bunch of birthday candles, 4 inches, and we're going to use a green one because we want to have finances for groceries. Bay leaves, of course, we've used that before. Very common with money magic. It's a wonderful thing. If you have like a basil oil, you can put it on your candle. I have a separate stand underneath mine. I think I've mentioned this before. I get panicky about candles and fires and stuff because things can go wrong very quickly. So I like to have a secondary something underneath it. Um, I am going to write on my bay leaf in a green pen, and I'm just going to do a big green pen. Abundance, but also budget because I want both things. So I want to be able to come away from the grocery store feeling like I got enough food that I can feed myself and really still love what I've got, but also I'm within my budget. And then the last thing I'm going to do is, and this is helpful to have the extra thing here, is I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt around the base here. Um, and then we are just going to do a little visualization here to kind of get some good energy into the candle and get it going. So we'll just hold our hands over it and we'll say, what no longer serves my budget gently falls away. What helps me thrive comes easily. And then we light our candle. I'm not going to do that because I've got a Kitta friend right here, and his nose is a little close to the candle. But we would light it and you can just let it burn out for the rest of the evening.
I like it. I like it. There's such a difference between being in survival mode and being in thriving mode, right? And
Oh, yeah.
and I think when we're in survival mode for a long period of time, it's very taxing. Um, but I mean, so many of us have been there, right? I mean,
And a
it's
lot of people are there right now, and they will be moving forward as well. I know that, um, SNAP benefits are, I think they're officially moving forward. I'm not sure if they're completely through yet, but I found out this weekend that the government, or maybe it was sometime this last week, the government actually went out of its way to stop people from being able to use SNAP money. The states that actually handed out the SNAP money before the government shutdown ended, they went to them and told them that they had to claw that money back. And oh my gosh, it's like a pit in my stomach of like cruelty upon cruelty that you find extra money for ICE agents, but you're clawing back money that people are using to put bread on the table for their children.
yeah, and apparently, senators can sue for $500,000 if their metadata was used for January 6th purposes. That was in the last bill that
Mhm.
passed. I don't know if you heard about that.
I I did. I didn't realize it was a J6 thing. I wasn't
Yeah.
just sounding
And then
so.
apparently they're in talks to settle with Michael Flynn for like $50 million. And it's like,
Mhm.
we have $50 million for Michael Flynn.
Somebody who was, if I'm
Uh,
not mistaken, wasn't he found guilty?
He was found guilty. Yeah, he's a convicted
Okay.
felon.
So he's a convicted felon and we're going to give him money
Well,
because I don't know. This doesn't sound like the law and order that we were promised by somebody.
well, I think this is why, the Republican Party and MAGA probably more closely is they're starting to fracture.
Hmm.
There were some interesting messages this weekend about the corruption. The Swiss government gave the felon a gold bar and a clock, and then their tariffs get reduced.
Oh, I had not heard that one. No,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
there's
it's
just so much
insanity.
corruption. It's hard to follow all of it.
I I know, and I think it's like, it's always darkest before the dawn, right?
Hmm.
That phrase. I think that's where we're at when we were talking about the three-eye atlas object. It's like the corruption has to reach a peak before it can get better. And I think people are starting to realize this, Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, horrible people, but now calling the felon a constant disappointment.
Hmm.
Marjorie Taylor Greene saying on The View that he's gaslighting the American people and lying to them about the cost of things.
That's actually, to me, that's kind of big because she is stalwart in that community.
It
Um,
is big.
but also, when it comes to groceries, I think she actually is intelligent enough to know that like she's not living in the bubble that the felon is. I truly do think he's living more and more in a bubble because he has made it very clear, at least from what I remember in the first term, that he only wanted positive stories fed to him, and people who gave him bad news tend to disappear from their jobs. And so this go around, there's a lot of just stuff that's coming to him that's not true or is being colored.
Well, I mean, do you think he's
Thing.
been in a grocery store recently?
Oh, I don't. Has he ever been in a grocery store?
I don't know.
Maybe
Um,
for a maybe for a commercial or something.
but when you have people like I follow, I told you that I got into the weird YouTube algorithm of the doomsday preppers.
Yes.
So those videos sometimes still pop up. And one of the videos I sometimes watch because I think she's got good tips on just like saving electricity, frugal living, and like not a depriving yourself, but just uh she was talking about in her budget, she can't afford her fancy coffee anymore. And so she was buying the fancy coffee and then cutting it, like half fancy, half this cheaper coffee. And how
Yep.
many people are just only able to afford the cheaper coffee, which I mean, I'm not a huge coffee drinker, so but when I do drink coffee, I mean, I like the good stuff. So
Yeah. I mean, we aren't yet to the point where people are like buying chicory like they used in World War II, but um and I don't honestly think we'll get completely there, but
no,
I think people will start rationing themselves a little bit just because of climate change over the next, not immediately, but over the next decade or two, right?
it's that security thing. It's the same thing about having a little bit of, maybe if you have an extra $500 in your checking account and you're just not willing to spend it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about even separate from your emergency fund if you're lucky to have one. It's just you're just like the energy is you're just not willing to spend it because you don't know what it is that's going to be next on the expensive list. When I got sick, um, I like to use those breathe right strips for allergies and when I'm sick because it just helps me sleep better. They're like $33 for a box of 42 of them. And I remember you used to be able to get that for like 15 bucks.
Oh my gosh. I,
And that was a
yeah.
tough purchase. Like, if I couldn't breathe, I wouldn't, I had to buy them, but well, I guess I
I,
didn't have to, but
yeah.
it's, and you look at like the price of like toilet paper and stuff like that. It's a lot. Um, and I've seen here and where we live, nobody's buying paper towels, which is maybe a good thing for the environment, but the price of paper towels are outrageous. It's like 30 bucks for 6 rolls or something like that.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, you can see that, all these like frugal things on YouTube. If you get sucked into that algorithm, that's the biggest thing that they talk about is buying, dishcloths and stuff like that and not using paper products, which is good. But
I don't know. Kitty upchuck, I use paper towels to clean up for better or worse.
well, there's certain things, you're right. Like if a cat has a ate too fast and has an issue, I use paper towels for that too, right? I'm not paper towel free. I'm not claiming to be. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's there's definitely more dish towels for napkins these days than paper napkins.
Oh, yes, yes. And that is more economical. Um, yeah, and once prices go up, the problem is that it's really hard for them to go back down because even if on the cost, on the pipeline side, the cost goes down, um, people don't want to lose that income stream, right? They see that their materials maybe cost less for like making a bar of chocolate or processing coffee. But since people adjusted to the price increase already, they leave it at the same price and just take the profit if the cost goes down.
This is a great point, and this was really illustrated during the pandemic when PepsiCo, the price of soda went up, right? Especially in the aluminum cans.
Yep.
Um, and then after a year, when things started to return to somewhat normal, PepsiCo on their earnings call said, yeah, the cost of packaging is back to normal, but we're not lowering our costs because it's just increased our profit margin. And
Yeah.
we see no decrease in sales. So, you know, um, as we don't buy soda very often at all. And not that we ever really did, but it's a harder harder thing to pull the trigger on when it's, $3 for a bottle of soda in the Dollar General.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't drink soda, but I drink fizzy water. And during the pandemic, I reduced my intake to, limit of 1 can a day, if that. And I just haven't gone back because it is expensive. Um,
Yeah.
and I heard recently that the felon is planning to reduce tariffs on some things because of the high price. Do you think that's going to affect the grocery mart, grocery store prices, or is it just kind of, you know, same thing will happen? The producers will say, well, now we make more money.
I I I think it probably not quickly, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
possible that it does. I think on some things it won't. I don't think coffee prices are going to come down, for example, because that's already a luxury purchase, right? You don't
Hmm.
really need coffee to survive. I mean, I know there are people that would
Well,
argue
there
that.
are some that need.
But
I know individuals who will not speak until they get their first cup. So,
exactly. But things like fruit and fresh produce, particularly things like onions and potatoes, which onions are crazy expensive. Here they're like, $4 for like like the bag. I don't know how much the bag weighs, maybe 2 pounds, something like that. I mean, it used to be like a buck 69, right? I mean, it was you didn't really even think about it. It's like, oh, onions, they're cheap, right? Put them in the cart because you can add them to your tacos, to your soups, to your whatever.
well, it's a staple when you're cooking, right? Most things that you make, you start off with onion and garlic. You go from there.
Yeah, and my father-in-law who now lives with us was telling us about the time that onion prices went way up in India, and it basically caused all the voters to throw out everybody that had been in power. Like the price of onions is what did it. So he thought
I would love to see that. Yes, let's
it
have
might
an
be,
onion revolt.
and like I was noticing the last time that I was in the store, which was a few weeks ago, like a 6 pack of beer in the bottles is like over $10.
Oh, God.
Now
Wow.
that I would think would make MAGA go crazy. You know, I don't know. We don't drink very often, but I just thought that seems like an awful lot. Um, and
Yeah.
you know, so I don't know. They say gas prices and the price of beer is pretty predictive of elections. And gas prices aren't like crazy bad like they, were at some points in time, but they're not super cheap either here.
No, no, they're not like pre-pandemic prices, or during the pandemic prices, right? We're not going back to that, but of course it was cheap then because nobody was driving. So, um, but
But the price of
yeah,
crude
like,
way
when
cheap.
disasters happen, I always think like when disasters happen, there are certain places in the country where like everything's shut down except for the pharmacies, the grocery stores, and the liquor stores.
Yes.
Like, and I've been in, I don't know if you've been in situations like that, but I have in certain places where those are your options. Um, if you want to buy something, because everything else is forcibly shut down to deal with the disaster.
Yes, it's crazy. So what do you think? Do you think we're going to get this $2,000 stimulus check that he's talking about? And do you think it's a good idea?
I think it's a dumb idea. I think that he really is going to push for it because he wants to put his name on it and give that illusion that he's giving money to people directly, even though it's money that he's taken out of everybody's pocket to begin with. Um, and more than that, right? Especially with the taxes and everything. But I don't know if it's actually going to go through. I think it depends on if Congress like steps up to do its job or not. What do you think?
I don't. it's a tricky calculus, right? Because I think there are some people that could really use $2,000.
Hmm.
And then there are a number of people that would like $2,000 but don't necessarily need it.
Yep.
And there are people that just don't need it. And the problem when you start doling out money, and we saw this in the pandemic when, we were all getting $1,400 stimulus checks like every other month, it seems, uh, is it raises prices on things. It
Yeah.
just does. It causes inflation. So I would like to see if they're gonna do it that they form it in a way to where it really does go to the people that most need it.
Oh,
But
that's not going to happen.
no, I know it's not. But I mean, what income level do you draw the line at too? It's a tricky question because it depends on which state you're in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
$100,000 in West Virginia is a lot. $100,000 in New York City is not.
Yeah. Cost of living is different where you're at, whether you're rural or in a city. Uh, I mean, there's a reason why like your base pay if you work for the government is different based off of which state you're in and which
Yep.
space you're in because
As
your
is
housing needs are different.
as is the reimbursement rate for hotels and stuff, right? Like
Yep.
the country's very different from region to region, you know. Um, let's just see what the cards say. So we do get the Page of Pentacles. I think there's gonna be a lot of arguing about it. I don't think it's quite, I don't think it's a done deal.
Hmm.
Um, I think Democrats will make arguments that it shouldn't go to people making above a certain threshold.
Yeah.
And I think Democrats will make the argument that it should be given as a tax credit and not actual cash. Um,
Which is not something that the felon will want because his name won't actually be on a piece of paper that goes out to everybody.
right. So I don't think the felon's name will be on it because I don't think that the really crazy part of the Republican Party, they won't vote for it, so they're going to need some Democratic votes. And I
Hmm.
think they'll insist that that just doesn't happen. But I, it's not really, the Wheel of Fortune is maybe 50-50. I don't know.
Hmm.
It just feels like it's gonna cause like the people that really need it, I empathize, right?
Yeah.
Really empathize. But to give everybody, say making less than $400,000 a year, $2,000, it's just gonna drive the price of things up.
Yeah.
Because, all of a sudden, all the major retailers know that people have this stimulus money. It's just like the tax refunds. Like things go up after tax refund season. Just
Well,
that.
and it would be better to just give everybody that money in terms of health care that's affordable, you know?
Yeah. The Seven of Cups, illusion and delusion. I think there is a lot of that. I don't think $2,000 is going to buy his way out of the problems that he's having with voters. Regardless,
No.
because you know it's just not like
A
people realize.
family of four could easily spend $1,000 just in a month on groceries.
Well, exactly. And who is it's kind of like, the states that have decided that okay, if you own a hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle, you should pay a higher price to register your car because you're not buying as much gasoline. So you're not paying as much of a gas tax. So therefore, you're not helping repair the roads as much.
Hmm.
But that's not really fair if you think about that because the person that's registering their car that runs completely on gas but only drives it, 20 miles a month, like, some of my older neighbors, they're also, not either, right? Like it's not that easy to parse out who should and who shouldn't.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a done easy thing to figure out.
Yeah, and we get the Empress at the center, which is, I mean, maybe, um, and the Queen of Cups. It's possible this happens, but I don't think it changes the minds of voters. I think they will move forward with yeah, so the Justice and the Two of Cups. I don't think it'll go the way he wants it to, though. Um, so we'll have to wait and see, but my guess is that there'll be some attempt to push it through. I don't know that, they'll get all the votes that they need to make it look like it's a check from him.
Hmm.
And I don't know that he'll be interested in it if it's not.
Well, and will they be able to do it before January? Is it the end of January when there's another fiscal cliff? Or not cliff, I should say. That's something else, but when the government may shut down again, a budgetary thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny, but the people that support these uh the MAGA philosophy would not be to give everybody $2,000, right? They would
Hmm.
be opposed to that idea. I would think, but people do anything to win elections. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. What do you think is going to happen with the Epstein vote, though? And do you think that that affects this stimulus? Do you think that they're connected?
Oh. Okay, so first of all, on the vote itself, so far it looks like it's going to be on Tuesday that they're going to vote on it. Um, I think it might pass, to be honest. I think that they might release the files, because the felon made this such a big mainstay of his campaign of we're going to release these files. They even had that day on the Capitol where they gave these huge binders to these people that had materials that was pretty much all public anyway. So it really wasn't new things. Um, and like this is how he got a good contingent. A lot of people followed him because they were the people who enjoyed, the Pizzagate conspiracy, and now it's the Epstein conspiracy, and there are definitely parts of that party that are now downplaying it, saying, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal," or, "Well, these girls are not really that young, so it might not be so bad," have the Megan Kellys of the world. But I think there's enough of a push that it will go through. What do you think?
I think so. My understanding is it has to pass the House, it has to pass the Senate, and then he can veto it.
Yep.
And I think it'll pass rather well in the House. I think 300 or plus more votes. I think it'll be veto proof. Probably the same in the Senate. But here's the kicker. I don't think the DOJ will release the files, even though Congress passes a law,
Yep. They're
because
gonna.
they're going to say there's an active investigation. That was his whole
Mhm.
point of Pam Bondi, you should investigate the Democrats.
Yep. Yeah, they're gonna find some. I do agree with you on that part. They're gonna find some reason not to release that stuff. And for somebody who doesn't care that people know certain things about him, he's really pushing hard for this to be hidden.
Well, one of the major MAGA influencers, and I can't remember this person's name, but he tweeted out something to the effect of, and I saw this on like the Midas Touch Network or one of the liberal YouTube channels. Um, Tweeted out something to the effect of, there's more corruption in Washington right now than there ever has been. And it's almost like Republicans don't think Democrats will ever be in power again and that people can't go to jail for these things. And
Hmm.
I I don't know.
Well, and I think part of it is because after the felon's first term, Biden came in and the Justice Department kind of wanted to do a Nixon, let's clean the slate, we'll move on. we'll pretend that didn't happen. We'll go after some people, but we're going to take it slow. We're going to kind of, not not go full throated against everything, right? You did have fractions that did, right? The New York system went after the felon um, and got him convicted. But other, the main justice system, Merrick Garland, did take it slow. And so I'm wondering if there's a bit of an idea in the current Trump administration that this will happen again or that they will be in power forever. I think both are really scary to buy into because I think that this time around, our nation, just to heal, is going to have to say there are consequences for actions, and you can't just be this corrupt. Is that the Five of Wands?
That is the Five of
Okay.
Wands.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Yeah, I think there's fight back because, like, let's hypothetically say Gavin Newsom becomes president, and I'm not saying that he will, by the way. I'm just saying let's hypothetically
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
and let's say he appoints somebody like Letitia James or even Vice President Harris as Attorney General.
Hmm.
Uh, they're not gonna go slow.
No, I think this time around we stop with the kid gloves are off to a certain extent. The corruption in this administration has just been huge.
Yeah, I think the Five of Wands followed by the Nine of Wands. We got to keep the guardrails up. I think we got to do some reflection with the Hermit card. And I think that means we get a lot of surprises. And I think that is people going to jail. I just do. I've said that for a while because, we have to put an end to this idea of this is an acceptable form of governance.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that there's more laws that come into place to put guardrails on this sort of absurd behavior. Um, I think the founders thought that there could be corruption, but they thought that, I don't think they thought somebody with dementia would be in charge. Let's put it that way.
That's right. I mean, I think this is their downfall. Like, I just think they've overplayed their hand, and the Democrats will clean up the mess. But if you think back, because we're roughly the same age, you know, after the torture stuff became public, right?
Hmm.
Everybody wanted Obama to pursue Bush and Cheney and all the people involved in that, and he didn't. He said, "Oh, it's time to move forward." I don't think that's the way we play anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's a
this is
different
too big.
And I think it's a different generation that's in charge.
Hmm.
Obama's now in his 60s, right? So, you know, I think I think people our age are just not willing to pass that up. And I think that we're probably going to get a president that's less than 60 would be my guess. And that's a Democrat, by the way. I don't think the Republicans can win, but uh, I think it's there's just no reason not to fully enforce the laws. To just
Well, and other nations have put leaders behind bars for committing crimes. I mean, we are no exception. We should be no exception to that.
Right. I mean, Bolsonaro, isn't he in prison in Brazil? And isn't there a former French prime minister that's in prison?
I believe so, and one from South Korea, right?
Yep, South Korea. Um, I think
Um,
you got us, and one for Peru. I don't know if he's still behind bars because there's a lot of chaos in Peru, but because the guy that won tried to suspend Congress. He might be in prison too. I have him up to date. We do have a Chilean election tonight, Sunday.
mhm.
It's just the first round, so we won't know who won most likely unless somebody gets 50%, which I don't think is going to happen. But they're most likely going to revert to going back to the right and elect the son of somebody who was a Nazi. So,
Oof.
not everything is forward moving, right? There's setbacks along the way, which I think is important to realize that's how we
Yeah.
move forward, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's curious to see. I'm just gonna really quickly see if there's any Chilean election results. I I'm sure everybody's just in suspense.
Well, we like to think about our own politics, and we forget that there's a whole nother world out there so often. And there is, and it's, I mean, the politics in different places is very interesting. I feel like the US is kind of isolated in its own way. It's not in a healthy way necessarily.
Well, it seems like in Chile that the leftist, which is the current government, they sometimes call themselves communists, but it doesn't mean necessarily the same thing. Um, is leading the vote. That's the person we'd probably want to win, versus the guy who's basically speaks like a Nazi. So, um, and then there's a guy to the right of him that's even worse. But they'll cut it down to two. It seems like those two are going to go to a runoff in a few weeks. So we'll have
Okay.
to, but that seems pretty decided already. So no suspense in the Chilean elections, which I know everybody was holding their breaths on. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, I think, it's how do we move? How can this country move forward if we don't hold people accountable? Like, I
And
don't see
I
it.
I don't know how that works, to be honest. I think at this point, yeah. It's one of those things like small things you can let slide and move on. And I think a lot of parents go through this, right? Where you would get at some point like small things, okay, my kid took a piece of candy out of the candy bowl when I wasn't looking and ate it and hid the wrapper. Whatever. But if they take the whole candy bowl and they're not supposed to, then you step in and you say, let's have a conversation. Consequences, right?
And if they take the whole grocery store?
Well,
Yeah, I think I mean, in some ways it's kind of exciting times. Uh, and I use that word just as an energy, not as like I'm excited about it. Because you know, it's going to be very interesting to see because the country is going to put itself back together. It always does.
mhm.
Um, all this talk of doom and gloom, I just don't see it happening personally, but uh it could, but I just don't think so. I think, elections are still happening. You know, Democrats won big earlier this month. I think we have a special election in Tennessee, which I think the Republican will win, but if the Democrat can get within 10 points, then Republicans are going to be really scared.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that's the case because there needs to be a little bit more compromise. Having one party go alone and ignoring the feelings and the needs and the wants of half of the country is just not doable. You know, it'd be nice if we had a three parties at least in this system because I think the two-party system is really problematic in a lot of ways. I don't see us generating a third party that's viable, though, at least not in the short term.
Well, I mean, you'd have to change the Constitution, right? Because, you have to win a majority of electoral votes to become president. Otherwise, the House of Representatives elects the president.
Hmm.
So, which has
Yeah.
happened, early on in the founding of the country. It happened all the time. I don't know that the country would be okay with that today, right? And each state gets one
Oh,
vote. So it's like the person
yeah.
from Wyoming, the one representative from Wyoming gets to cast a vote. South Dakota, North Dakota, Vermont, they all get one vote for just one person. And then the 50 whatever people from California are going to have to agree where they put their one vote. You know,
That, yeah, that would lead to more conspiracy theories than anything else.
yeah, so I mean, you have to change the Constitution and get rid of the Electoral College, um, which would, I mean, it's just not going to happen. So it's we're unfortunately stuck there, um, and that is a shame, but it's the fact of the case. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, you probably remember when Ross Perot ran in the 90s. He got like 19% of the vote the first time, I think. He didn't win any electors, but
it's pretty good
yeah,
though.
well, I mean, he made Bill Clinton win a bunch of them, right? Bill Clinton won 400 and some electoral votes, but um,
Mhm.
I mean, Bill Clinton won Montana. It's crazy to think about, but um, yeah, I don't know what would happen if we actually had a viable third party. Like, would whatever party they're more closely aligned with, would one of them drop out and endorse,
I don't
knowing that
know.
there'd be chaos?
I feel like there's a lot more people who consider themselves independent now,
Oh, for
more
sure.
than, one or the other. Um, and I think the key for both parties to do well is to have a big tent. That is really what allows the parties to thrive. And when you make it just one thing, so like if Democrats say, um, let's say we decide, Democrats decided identity politics was the one and only thing, you're going to lose a lot of people, right? Because you're
That's
not talking about the issues that really matter to a good chunk of the country. Um, Same with Republicans. If all it is, adore the felon, you are losing a lot of people because, again, you're not talking about things that matter to a lot of folks.
well, I think that's right. I mean, I think, there's been a wedge literally to where the Republicans have gone crazy,
Hmm.
and, and the Democrats in some right have become much more homogenous. And I don't think that's really a good thing, right? There used to be, now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, it's a bigger deal, but there used to be pro-life Democrats, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like the party won't accept that position because of Roe being gone,
And
which makes sense.
I feel complicated about it, but I feel like it's like it's one of those things where like you aren't going to agree with somebody on everything, but if you can get 80% there, it might be just enough, right?
But if you could get a good, solid pro-life Democrat to run for Senate in a state like Kansas, you might win.
Well, that's what I mean is like, there's certain people like you may not agree with everything in them, but if there are in certain like rural places, and they know the price of a bushel of soybeans, they
Yeah.
can get elected, right? You have a Republican who, you know, doesn't know that and is going to the ag community, they're sunk. Um, and so even if, the pro-life used to be such a big component, and I think it is still for a lot of people, like their number one voting thing. But when your grocery prices are so high, sometimes the pro-life maybe is not as important as making sure that you can feed your family.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the most emasculating, most um, downtrodden type feeling is when you can't afford to feed people, that you're responsible for. So I
Hmm.
think, that's what people are going to vote on. They're going
Yeah.
to vote on their economic. That's why the Democrats are going to win in 26.
And I don't know, I always kind of had that gut feeling of it wasn't until we feel an economic pinch that people are really going to turn against the felon
Yeah,
because there are so many low information voters. And I think we both know people like that
absolutely.
who, they don't know much about the Epstein files. They don't know about the corruption. They just don't pay attention to the news at all. But they can't ignore going to the grocery store and seeing that bill when they walk out. That's the one thing that is in their life that they're not able to just ignore or shut out.
Or, when they need to buy a new used car, or,
Hmm.
um, they're thinking about getting a car for their kid going off to college and they can't afford it because, the car loan comes with the 11% interest rate,
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yeah, and that 50-year mortgage on the house. What a
I,
idiotic
you know, I did a
ideas.
calculation on that, and with a $500,000 mortgage, which is a huge mortgage, but it
Yep.
was the number I put in at 6%. I don't remember the exact numbers, but between 30 years and 50 years, the 50-year mortgage saved you like $120 a month.
Okay.
So you're basically saving $120 a month to pay 20 more years.
Oh my gosh.
It's
That is huge.
Yeah, and
Well,
I
and
mean,
that's just it, right? You extend the length of a loan and you can pay anything you want. It's just you're paying it forever. I mean, that's like when you go to buy a car, um, the dealer says, "What can you afford?" That's why they do, right, the price, or at least I've never done the app thing, but they have the slider, what are you willing to pay? But what that doesn't tell you is that determines the length of your loan.
right, and I mean, car loans, we haven't bought a car in a long time, so I know they're, because I check the mortgage rates all the time because I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm.
Mortgage rates have not really come down, even though
Mm-hmm.
the Fed's cutting rates. Um, the car loans, like from like a good credit union, which is going to be your lowest bet, right? That's going to be your best bargain. They're still like for a brand new car, it's like 7%.
Mm-hmm.
For a used car, it's 9 to 10%. Because it's a riskier bet to buy a used car because if it breaks down in a week, people are just not going to pay back their loan. You know, there's no warranty there to fix it, so people are
Yeah.
going to walk away. So and I should also mention on that $500,000 mortgage, like the payment was like $3,500 to start with, so the 120 really wasn't even 10% savings, right? It was almost nothing. As a
Yeah, and not only that, but the amount that you pay over your lifetime in interest like quadruples,
Oh, for sure.
something like that, right?
Well,
So,
what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
so I still consider myself fairly young, but I'm getting close to 50. I'm probably not going to live past a 50-year mortgage. I mean, maybe. If I am, I'll still be here chatting, but
I hope so. But yeah, I mean, is your mortgage gonna go to your kids then? Is that our new thing? Is that we don't have generational wealth, we have generational mortgages? I
well,
mean,
right. And part of the reason why, a 30-year mortgage works is because by the time you pay it off, hopefully before death, or at least
mhm. Or at
mostly
least before
before death.
retirement, usually, the hope is.
Yeah. But, at least there's equity in the house,
Hmm.
right? Versus, like with this 50-year mortgage, you were building like $60 worth of equity every month for the first year. I mean, it was all interest.
Yeah, at which point, you know, by the time you haven't built much equity in a period of 10 years, right?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you have a house for 10 years and you go to sell it, if you had a 15-year mortgage, most of the house is equity and you're making money when you sell it. If you have a 50-year mortgage, after 10 years, if you decide to sell, you basically are lucky to cover your closing costs and everything because all that money went towards interest in the first 10 years. You made
Right. Because you have to
very
pay
little.
your real estate agent 6% of the sell price. You have to
Hmm.
pay, the closing costs for the buyers usually, and obviously there's always some repairs, and it just becomes really messy. And then all of a sudden you have people that can't afford to sell their house.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense that this is coming from somebody who has been given money, who continually tries to skirt tax laws and cheats people and sues people and doesn't pay bills, you know. He just doesn't have a concept of what it means to be a working American.
I think that's right. I almost think that we should, I don't mean this literally, but so
Thank you
I
for
do not
clarifying.
I do not mean this literally, but it almost would be nice if we forced everybody to work 1 year as a server or a bartender or
Oh my
in a
gosh. Yeah.
McDonald's or something so that they can learn some manners and realize how badly these people are treated and so on and so forth. But I mean, I know the people
Mandatory
that
service, I tell you, if everybody had to do a year or two with the military, first of all, it would do a lot to decrease racism because you'd be working side by side with people that you're not familiar with, and you'd get used to different people, and you'd learn a lot.
yeah, I mean,
That's controversial, but that's where I'm coming from.
no, I get what you're saying. I think the same's true of, um, of waiting tables as well. That reminds me of I have some crazy stories from when I waited tables when I was in college that involved some almost race wars. So, but I think the other part that I think would really, from the military perspective, again, and I'm not endorsing this idea, nor do I support this. I don't think it's a great idea, but getting people out of the country, you
Oh,
know,
yeah. Yeah, I see
just
what you mean.
just to like have this perspective of like this is how other places operate, and they're not like as scary as you think.
I think
Well,
if
some are, but
everybody in high school was able to do, just a week in a different country
yeah.
as part of their education. I know financially that's never going to happen, but that would just change so much, I think, especially for people who haven't been out of the country, right? There's a lot of young kids these days that are growing up in families where they can afford to do stuff like that, and some of them on a more frequent basis. You and I came from the generation where we did not go on international vacations except for possibly on a road trip to Canada, you know, which
Right. No,
really was not as exciting as it sounds.
no, I didn't leave the country until, I was asked to do so for the job that I had. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we took vacations, but they were road trips. You're right. I don't think I even got on an airplane until I was, maybe 18, 19, something like that. So, I think all these things inform our decision making, I mean, I was lucky enough that I got to go to college quite a ways away from where I grew up. So being on my own and in that melting pot of, a university setting, I think really
Hmm.
was quite useful. Um,
Yeah.
think about the kids that don't get away, and I think this is where this, particular as a white male, I'll speak to the white male angst. I think that's where it comes from, is because they believe the boogeyman stories of these people are the ones hurting us because they just don't know.
Yeah, and I would like to point out too that this is not just for like rural hicks learning, about different cultures or anything. I don't think that's the case. I think even people from big cities like New York City, kids from there could really benefit from going elsewhere. I mean, I've been around, I've heard some New Yorkers say something like, little, younger kids say something like, "Why would I go anywhere else? Everything's here. This is the best place." And all I could think of is, you haven't been anywhere else. How can you compare it? Um, and for a lot of those people, going to someplace else, And it can be, going to Paris, it can be going, backpacking in Vietnam, somewhere else, doing something else, learning about a different culture would just be amazing.
I agree. I think it would be super beneficial for the world to. I can't remember who it was, but somebody said something along the lines of, if you're not having dinner with somebody of a different race at least once a month, you're being too isolated. But I was thinking, where I grew up, that really probably wasn't an option, right? It's
That
so homogenized.
wasn't an option where I grew up either. We had
Yeah.
one family of color in the entire town. And that was it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, Anne, it's been fun chatting with you. We've been, I think, chatting for over an hour. Maybe it's time to wrap this up and get ready for the week to start. But
Oh, I hope everyone has a good week.
me, me too. And I think it's gonna be a good week. I really do. Um I think things are gonna be interesting this week, and we'll be here to talk about it, hopefully.
Yeah, yes. Let's plan on talking earlier this week. Um, Maybe
Yeah.
sometime after Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, that we shall. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks, Anne.
everyone.